Welcome, everyone, to another episode of If It Be Your Will podcast coming to you. I have Ted here from Monster Rally. Now, Monster Rally has been around for quite some time. If you hop onto Monster Rally Bandcamp page, you'll see there's a ton of stuff there, and it's deep in richness. And Monster Rally is really mainly instrumental. Their new record is not, which we'll get to, but a lot of instrumental, hip-hop, surfy, sampley, almost like, and I read this about Monster Rally. It was creating new worlds for us to go into explore. Mainly tropical, exotica, like imagined worlds. And you create these marvelous soundtracks for us to kind of daydream into. So thanks so much. First,
thank you. I think you nailed it. Yeah, you nailed the description.
Awesome. Well, I've been really a fan of yours from the get-go. I was obsessed with your first EP.
Mm-hmm. The Color Sky EP, or the Palm Reader, or what's the... Oh, no, the MR EP, the very first MR EP. That starts, The Wolf is the song that's the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Honeymoon, 2 words, was one of the tracks that I had on multiple mixtapes that I had growing up. And it just kind of kept me hooked to you, and I followed you, up until this day. And I've always been fascinated about how your music is created, which we'll get into. But maybe just a little walk down memory lane of when all this started for you. The sense of music and your connection to it and your desire to create, because it's prolific. And it's not only music, but you also do prints as well. Is that like you aren't bound to one creative endeavor? Right. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that music started to be a foundation on which you wanted to build your life around?
Yeah, of course. First of all, thanks for listening for so long. If you throw me right back to Honeymoon, that's 16 years ago, man. It's crazy. Like the scope of doing music in the same project for so long is a little bit like having a kid, where like time is not real, and suddenly it's been 10 years or it's been 15 years, and you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. I experienced that. Yeah. Like, what happened?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like it was just the 15th year anniversary of my first record, the Coral that came out in like 6 months after what we were talking about. Anyway, to answer your question, I would say, I think I knew that I wanted that music was going to sort of be the art form that I was basing my life and just like most of my creative energy on. From the time I immediately started playing guitar when I was maybe 12 or 13 years old. I was just obsessed. I had been into music pretty seriously from the time I knew how to choose my own music. You know what I mean? From being a kid. And when I started playing it, I was just like, oh, okay, I can do this. I can make my own stuff. I can just noodle around and put on headphones and I had this little 4-track recorder, and I used to just make songs all the time. And I never, I so rarely learned how to play anybody else's songs. And so my friends are all just Sweet Home Alabama, intro riff and all that. And I was just, making up a lot of my own songs, and they weren't really very good. And I think because of that, honestly, I'm probably not as good of a player as I could have been, because I wasn't so much studying the technique. I was just trying to figure out how can I make something of my own, and then just kind of getting lost into it. And that sort of mindset and style of doing things has really carried through for all of my music career, really. And so I was in bands, and I was always playing music myself. And The artwork started around the same time in like early high school when we would have shows or we would have parties. And then eventually when we started to have, I would have, or my band would have releases, they needed artwork. And I was the only one who like really wanted to take some of that on. And so it started, a lot of it was like started in digital stuff, a lot of like kind of digital collage, Photoshop, all that sort of stuff. So it was always tied to music for me. You know, there was never a time, there was a brief time when I was making music where I wasn't making art, and then but there was never a time where there was art with no music. You know what I mean?
Interesting, right? And
Yeah,
is all the cover art of Monster Alley that's all your stuff?
yeah. Everything in Monster is something that I've done.
Amazing. And I just find it fascinating too, Ted, that you have this amazing way of building collages, both visually and sonically, and that you've been able to marry those two together all these years where, and I guess a question I had was, do you get inspired by your visual art to inspire your music, or does the music that you're creating help you inspire what the visuals will be?
Yeah, I think that the music tends to lead, you know, and usually like when I'm making, I'll record the record first, and then I'll tend to put together the artwork after I have most of the tracks done. So I might be like selecting final track listing, and I'll listen to a bunch of it while I'm creating some of the stuff. And I usually have a theme in mind, and especially because now it's been so long of doing this in a sort of similar style, and so Monster Alley kind of has its own sort of world and characters and style of stuff. And so I can kind of come in and be like looking through that lens at, whatever project is happening at the time.
That's really cool. And like, how did you figure this setup for Monster Alley? Like, I watched a few videos where you kind of talk about a 303 and a 404 in garage band. Like, what were the early setups of Monster Alley like for the creation process of your music?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because it's so very similar to just like starting to learn how to play guitar. I found the instruments that were being used by people who were really inspiring me at the time. And that was just having to be this Roland 303 sampler and then later the 404. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to start with one of those. And so I bought one, and I had all these records I had been collecting, and I knew that I wanted to just dig into some sampling stuff. And I had like a Fisher Price record player, which is I got it from my mom's attic. I used to play with it as a kid. And I had that plugged directly into my 303, and then directly out to this pair of like desktop computer speakers. And that's how I made the first few records, just like exactly like that on that machine. Because I think a lot of people, they started off diving right into the software. Like I have friends around the same time, like a good friend of mine, I don't even know what version it would have been or even if it was out, but who has been using Ableton since high school, and so he was deep on that. And a lot of my friends were in that zone doing a lot of those things. And I was still kind of operating from the 4-track recorder kind of standpoint of just like, simple to use, minimal interaction on a computer, and just like what's cool about these samplers is that you can play them like instruments, whereas a lot of stuff requires programming and a lot of like synths or some of these more complicated samplers. But the 404 series, the SP series in general, is just so tactile. Like you can come in and play, like I'm playing those samples almost like they're a drum machine. And that's how I made the records. And then for years and years, that is just how I played all the shows. Any show I played, I would have it, and I would play the songs exactly as I did when I was recording them,
That's cool. Yeah, I saw a live performance, and you're on this small little table, not taking up too much room. You have two, like, I guess they're the 303s, and then how they connect into everything else, the speaker system, and you're just going to town. Like,
yeah,
you're
you can do a lot with like, stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think it's cool. I mean, it's cool like that because there's so much that can be done with so little. And even now I've have the most elaborate setup that I've ever had doing this last shows I've done. And it's still very simple, but for me, it feels like so much.
It's evolved over time, I imagine. Well, I mean, technology keeps pushing forward, right? And changing stuff. And what is it in a good record that you like to pull samples from? Like, is there something about, like, what does it have to be for you to, like, take it and like, okay, I want to try to do something with this? is it as simple as like the cover, or you might know one or two of the tracks, or sometimes it's just like whatever, let's just try it.
Yeah, I usually when I won't buy a record if I know anything about it, typically is kind of like a rule I have for myself. And so it's almost all based on cover art. You just see what's cool, get, after it, see if you can like figure out what a vibe might be. Yeah, and if I like know what it is, I'm just reluctant to buy it because I feel like that just doesn't seem quite as fun for me, because it's all about just the discovery of stuff. And I think generally what it is it's just if it makes you feel something or if you can like see something kind of in your mind's eye based on like a section of something. And then when you start to chop things up a little bit and things get rearranged and they loop in a way that it wasn't necessarily intended to do, it changes sort of the whole feel and flavor of that section. So there might be like one little section of a loop that comes in and there's like a vibraphone and maybe like some strings or something, and it just is like very dreamy. And then when you loop that in on itself and then change a couple of the sections around, suddenly it's just like, oh, crazy fever dream you're having, and it feels surreal. And then then you can just go from there.
Interesting. And like typically, how long would a sample be? Like the samples you work with, like what's the length typically that you go after?
I mean, it depends. I would say like a few seconds, like 5 seconds maybe. It depends, especially like if there's more of like a main line that is sort of like repeating that has a melody that might be a little bit longer. But if it's a few sections chopped up, it's probably just like 1 to 2 seconds here and there.
Yeah. I'm seeing something here because I play guitar and bass and string and bass instruments. You could kind of see like a chord put together, which has, 3 different notes that assemble it. Do you see when you're creating your stuff, it's the same kind of thing? It's just like I have these individual notes and I put them together and it creates this chord, or, can that be transferred to how you create or how your process goes about?
Yeah, I think it can be. It definitely can be. And in a way of not even so much thinking too much about it, where it's like audio cut and paste, you know what I mean? And so it's just trying a lot of stuff out. So if I'll have so many of these little SD cards full of stuff, and I have 2 or 3 of these 404s sitting on my table here. And I'll have like some drums that I like, and then I will go through and I might just like mess around and find some samples that I'm into, and I have it like a little arrangement there, and I'll play that along, and I'll just filter through a bunch of my banks of stuff on my samplers until I'm finding things that seem like they're right with it. So it's like it's a lot of trial and error, and just like it's kind of cool when you do it that way though, because you wind up with some real unexpected stuff coming together that doesn't even necessarily work like music theory wise, but comes in and just it fits in the part, and it winds up, you feel something, basically is what it is. You wind up feeling something about that, and you're like, okay, let's push through that.
Yeah. Interesting. And I mean, your songs really do create this atmosphere, this geolocation of who knows what, where. Like, how does a song come to be? Like, do you have kind of an idea of an image or scenery that you're trying to flush out? Or is it just like a sample will come, a drum beat starts to come together, and then you start to see the sunrise and the palm.
Yeah.
Or the
Yeah, I think that's exactly it's more the latter of that. Yeah, like I'll be doing something and I'll hear something that sounds a certain way, or even there'll be a sample of something that is cool and is sort of, you're taking you somewhere, but then there's just like some textures that go with it where maybe there's just like this kind of far off sounding bells or wind chimes happening, and then maybe there's just like a little light breeze or whatever, and that just gets overlaid into it. So that there's all these little tricks that I kind of wind up doing, not even intentionally, but just because I feel like I have to build the location a little bit, in my mind. It doesn't have to be necessarily specific, but I want to feel like I'm somewhere.
Right.
And so the amount of time I spend with my eyes closed making music is insane, basically. Because you just have to be like, all right, can I see this? You know what I mean? Am I able to see this? And then when some of those tracks are done, a lot of that has to do like in the sequencing of the records too, about how things blend together and where you might feel like you are in one place and going to another. Because sometimes it's like we're gonna transition nice and smooth into this next one, and then sometimes it's like boom, cut off, that's done. You dived into a pool and now you're underwater. You know?
I love it. And I mean, you grew up in a very cold area. Like, I mean, I sympathize because I mean,
Yeah, similar
I've been
similar climate.
horribly cold weather. I don't know why humans live in these areas, but was that some kind of influence, or did that like almost escapism to like there's 20,000 feet of snow out there. I can't open the door to leave. Like I'm stuck in like what what inspired like what was your environment that you were in forcing you to have to create this whole other um made up world that is beautiful
Yeah.
and sunny and sweet and
Yeah, and yeah, it's nice, it's sunny, it's like mildly dangerous, but in like a silly Scooby-Doo kind of way. And yeah, I think it's 100% a reaction to that because all of that seemed different and ideal and fun. And even like a lot of the just generally the exotica stuff in general, that was like that for so many people when it came out, I think in 50s and 60s. You didn't know so much about a lot of these places. You might have been learning about them for the first time, about who knows, places in the Caribbean or stuff like in Polynesia that was all just like new and exciting and people they were learning about it all the time. A lot of it was wrong and a lot of the imagery was just like, straight up racist and cultural appropriation and all that. But at the core of it was people's interest in like what an incredible thing that these places exist. And even if we're sort of imagining them differently or whatever, it's just like exciting to think about. I know the world in a certain way and what I perceive to be my normal reality and how my climate is and what it looks like and my culture here is a certain way to be like, yeah, but what if you were in the same planet, but like everything was done differently, And the artwork is a little bit sort of like the same way when I think about it. It's just sort of like, what if we had all of these elements, but the scale was off. Do you know what I mean? And like we're giant trees and we have built our buildings, but like they're in the nook of this tree, and like we don't have cars, but we're riding on the backs of turtles.
I love it. I love it. So the latest record, Echoes of the Emerald Sands, again, just all your titles are just they make me want to swim in an ocean or something. You've worked pretty much by yourself, and no vocals, mainly instrumental on, the plethora of your discography. And then along comes this record where you're inviting vocalists to come and collaborate. How is that process for you from going from I do this stuff in my, my bubble and to
Yep.
I'm opening the doors up to allow other people to come in and access what I create? How was that transition for you?
Difficult in a lot of ways. And it was exciting and it was difficult. And I think you put it together really well because for me, Monsterelli and all this stuff, it is a bubble. And I enter into it and I'm alone almost all the time. Like I don't think I've ever recorded music with other people together in a room for Monsterelli. So it was very different to come in that sort of way. And I think that I was scared about it. I was scared about it, a lot of it when I started. And, but that actually quickly went away when I had gotten a few things done and started talking to people. And I started off with the people who I knew personally first, because I think I was felt safer for me to discuss. And, I always have like this sort of imposter syndrome where like, they're going to find out I'm not a good musician, I mean, I still feel like that all the time. Like, is this going to be the interview you find out I suck?
Yeah, but it's nice to carry around with you. Like,
No,
even if you want collaboration. Yeah.
no, exactly. And so I think I got into it and it was cool because a lot of the people I worked with, I mean, most of the people I worked with do this kind of stuff regularly. And so it was helpful to have them sort of lead the way on some of the stuff, honestly, to know what I was doing. And I think all it really took was to get back a few of these things with people to just feel really excited. And, I set the goal of doing this record so differently for myself, just to see if I could do it, because I had always kind of wanted to do it like this. And so as it started to come together, I just felt better and better and sort of more confident with it. And so like collaborating with people and going back and forth and just like sharing all of my rough ideas of stuff with people felt a lot more comfortable. Yeah, and I think that it wound up being real rewarding. And I mean, I love the record. I love all the features, and everybody did a great job, and I feel very proud of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's outstanding. I think it's some of your greatest work that you put out. I mean, I love it all, but there's something about this one that um just the instrumentation, how you assembled the songs and how they fit their voice in or their vocal. And was that planned? Like, so you would send them kind of, here's the rough idea, or was it pretty complete what you would send the vocalist to add to? And did you provide direction as to the kind of the style or, the flow of the lyrics that you wanted, or was that pretty much you let that go?
I pretty much let it go. I would say because especially I was coming into this as a first time, I was hoping just for to have like, here's the ideas I have, here's the musical ideas I have, some rough structure of a song basically. And I'd say when I shared things with people, they were mostly like 50 to 80% complete, music wise. And some stuff would get rearranged, and some of the artists did like rearrange some of the sections of the songs, I think, to make sense, because it's not as easy for me to hear like what is a better area to be singing on, you know what I mean? Or like a lot of the stuff I thought was a chorus when I would send it to them wound up not being the chorus. And I was like, oh, okay, well, and it was good. The way they did it was great, but it's amazing how you can hear something one way, and somebody else comes with it another way. But yeah, so I was basically like, hey, I would love you to be on the track to whoever I was talking to, and I want you to feel free to like let me know what you like about this, and if there's anything you don't like, we can work it out and take it out of there. If you want to add instrumentation on this, if you think that's cool, feel free where you think you'd like to do that. If you don't, that's also fine too. And so I think a lot of people were feeling pretty free about what they were doing. And like lyrically, I didn't really say much other than like, I guess sort of a couple of times, but what's interesting is I always named all my demos. And so I have all the demos have names, and a lot of them were the ones that came on to be the track names for the album or whatever. And so I think that sometimes those would dictate a little bit to the people about what they wanted to do. And so a lot of them they would come back and they sort of, their theme for their song, for their lyric writing had a lot to do like with what the title of my demo was, which is really cool. It's sort of like you drew eyes and a mustache on a piece of paper and then somebody hands you back like a fleshed out version of a person. And they're never what you expect, and it's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, imagine some of that had to getting used to, of kind of giving over your work in a sense of, I trust you guys. But I mean, that's a transition for an artist that's typically kind of done his own thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because I have a tendency when I first hear things, regardless of what it is, just to be like, I don't like this, and especially by the time I shared any of these songs with people, I had listened to them so many times. And I think like any musician who records music knows this feeling of having, demo-itis, of like, this is the song. This is the song. I know it is this. And I know I shared it with you and I want you to do something with it. And then you send it back to me. And then like, I get pissed because that's not the song, and then I have to be like, well, actually, hold on. That's not what I meant. And so I just kind of got to get over whatever that mental block is, and then come back and think about it in a fresh way. And I mean, I'm always wrong. Like, I don't think I've ever been right about that first feeling of just not liking something, because I get scared of it being different. But yeah, so I think that was a real learning curve for me, of just being like, especially because I don't normally have vocals, to me, a song could be done, And so that took a little bit of getting used to, but luckily everything came in so well that I was just like, oh, sweet. And I had been nervous about how they were going to be anyway. So when they came back and they were good, I was just like, I loved it. I was feeling all of them.
That's cool. And has this inspired your craft to start thinking about now vocalists for songs that you're doing now or recording now? Like, this would be a TV girl that would work so well. Like,
right. Yeah.
Is that seeping in now to your process?
It has, I would say, definitely, because I've been working on this record for so long now that I've been thinking about that with all this stuff I've been doing. Yeah, and I don't know if any of them will ever be that way, but it has changed a little bit of my mindset of how I've been writing it. And it's funny a little bit too. Like, I was doing all this, and I feel like I've done so much of it now. I feel like I want to release some instrumental music, but I definitely want to come back and yeah, just to get grounded a little bit more, and just like so I don't stay so focused on that, but knowing that I've done all this, and I think like it's made me excited about a lot of future projects because I feel like, oh yeah, like this could be anything, or making like a bunch of stuff with people, and yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Well, Ted, this has been fascinating. I have one simple question. What does the rest of 2026 hold for Monster Rally? What can we anticipate that you can do with us?
Yeah. Well, so there's going to be I have another collaboration coming out soon that there will be more information, something smaller, but that I'm excited about. And then just, a couple of things. And then I have another record, and I'm not sure if it'll come out at the end of this year or at the beginning of next year. That is kind of a sister record to the Echoes album, in that it has alternate versions of most of the songs on the record instrumental. So it's a lot of like the stuff I was talking about of like my versions of the stuff. And then like 6 or 7 other sort of new songs, and everything sort of all instrumental again. So it's a little bit like the more traditional Monster Rally version of some of the tracks. So I'm excited to start releasing some of that stuff and see what people think about it too, because that's like a lot of the songs I've been playing live. I play a lot of these new ones live, but obviously we don't have anybody singing, and so there's sort of like rearranged a little bit, which is really cool. And then I've got a couple of shows coming up. I'm doing some shows in Colorado, and maybe a little bit more. And then after that, I think I'm going to just be recording music pretty much for the second half of the year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's like a great year. I mean,
yeah, it sounds great. Feels good.
Well, I want to congratulate you on this latest Echoes of the Emerald Sand. Check it out, people. And like I said at the start of this, you got to go on to Monster Rally's Bandcamp page and just feast, escape.
By the next 12 hours of your life.
That's right. Well, Ted, thanks so much. I really appreciate your stories and the making of your music. You've just kind of opened those doors a little bit of how you go about it. And I appreciate that. So all the best for you and this record and your tours. And I'd love to continue this conversation and when that instrumental comes in.
Yeah, definitely. I'll come back. We can chat all about that.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Well, thanks, man.
all away.